Hello, how's it going? Okay, let's stop this guy. There we go. Okay, how is it going? So I decided to try something a bit different for today. I'm probably going to play a game at some point. I mean, at least that's the plan. But first of all, so how this came about was last night I was lying in my bed and I stumbled across this article here about The Crow from 1994. 19 fascinating facts about The Crow. And it got me thinking about a lot of stuff. And it also got me thinking a lot about this movie. Now, this movie changed my life. Like, there's no way I can, it's probably one of the first movies that absolutely 100% changed my life. So it came out in 1994. So what's that, 32 years ago, something like that? Jesus, that's a long time. And it changed my life. So I remember when it first came out. Hold on a second. Nemo, quiet. When it first came out in the theater, so I would have been 20 in 1994, 19 going on 20, I believe. It came out in the theater, and I wanted to go see it, but I couldn't get anyone to go with me, and there was kind of a thing where, like, I was looking at it, oh, this rock star, goes on a spree and gets the people that mess with him. So I was like, it may be a bit cheesy. And I also didn't really know anything about the comic book at the time, or with the graphic novel at the time. So it was a few years later, I finally got it on VHS. Actually, no, it would have been DVD. Or would it have been? It might have actually been VHS. Wow. And it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. I can't describe the kind of life-changing effect this movie had on me. So if you don't know much about it, all I can say, so it was Brandon Lee's last film. Hold on just a second, I can hear Nemo doing his... Okay, I just had to take care of Nemo for a little bit there. Okay, so the movie was Brandon Lee's, which is Bruce Lee's son. It was his last movie. He died during the making of this movie. I think like 6 or 7 days before the end of the movie. So that's kind of tragic. And it's funny because the movie is about death and loss and acceptance, and all that kind of thing. Let me get my chat up and running, because, I mean, I don't know them to hear, but I might as well be at least somewhat ready for it if anyone is. So let me pop that up. Probably should have done that first. I apologize. I did not do that. Why does it take... Oh, it always does this. It always takes forever the first time. There we go. Okay. On to... Suburb. Me. No, don't want to see that. And I can pop out chat, I believe. And I can pop out chat. Yes, I'm going to get rid of that in just a second. Chat. Yes, I'm going to get rid of that in just a second. Oh my god, it's doing. Oh my god, it's doing. Ah. Okay. Hold on, let me open it up in the other window, maybe. I'm not sure. Or I can just look at it on my phone. Just make things easier. Okay, let's pop that up. Okay, there we go. And then navigate to chat. There we go. Okay, hopefully I'll be able to keep an eye on that. Oh, next time I'm going to try and have the chat set up properly the way I'm supposed to. Ah! Okay. Okay, so the movie is about this rock star. I mean, I think he's a fairly moderately successful rock star named Eric Draven, and that's the character that Brandon Lee plays. And him and his fiance are murdered on what's known as Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween. They were going to get married on Halloween. And it's funny because one of the lines in the movie, one of the cops asks, "Who the fuck gets married on Halloween?" My parents did. My parents got married on Halloween. Um, so they were going to get married on Halloween, and the night before, these thugs break into their apartment and murder the both of them. It's a lot more graphic and violent than that, but that's all we'll get into for now. So they both get murdered, and a year later, I believe it is, Eric returns from the dead with all these kind of supernatural powers to get revenge on the people who killed him and his fiance. And he's assisted by this sort of supernatural crow who accompanies him, and he can see through its eyes and stuff like that. I know that sounds weird, but trust me, it works. Um, and so it's a revenge story, but it's always also got a lot of stuff that doesn't have to do with that. Like there's a girl who he knew who is so upset that him and his fiance died. She's like a younger than teenage, I think, girl, and she just can't let it go. She just can't stop thinking about her. And so he kind of comforts her at one point. There's a cop that's trying to figure out who's killing all these thugs, played by Ernie Hudson. And Eric Draven goes and sort of talks to him, finds out that he was there with Shelley, his fiance, the whole time that she was in the hospital dying. And yeah, it's got a lot of really poignant stuff. It's not just this action movie. There's a lot of feeling in it, a lot of emotion in it, and yeah, the action sequences are amazing. And there's an incredible soundtrack. I remember when this was probably one of the first soundtracks I ever bought, was the soundtrack to this movie, and it kills. It's got Nine Inch Nails, The Cure, My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. It's just an incredible soundtrack. I just remember listening to it over and over and over again. Um, so this movie seriously changed my life. Like, it was just amazing. It's probably the movie that's most responsible for me identifying as a goth. It's the movie that made me a goth, uh, and kind of shaped a lot of my identity going forward from that. Okay, so let's look at these facts. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so The Grow is based on a comic book, so it's actually like a graphic novel inspired by two tragedies. So in 1981, 21-year-old James O'Barr, who's the guy who wrote the graphic novel, uh, He hoped it would be a healthy way of dealing with the death of his fiancee. So already you can see, because the movie deals with, you know, the fiance and the guy being murdered. So you can already see real life events played into this for Dan O'Ban, James O'Barr. Um, so she'd been killed by a drunk driver. He tried all the typical angst-ridden outlets like substance abuse, going to clubs or parties every night, and just basically trying to keep yourself numb. So I have also tried a lot of that stuff. You know, I've also been in those kind of dark, shitty places. And so that kind of spoke to me with that movie, is that it was really addressing that stuff. It was addressing loss and death and our collective inability to kind of deal with that stuff. So yeah, so basically the death of his fiance at the because of a drunk driver, and his crappy ways of coping led him to try and deal with it in a better way, which was to write this story. Um, okay. Eventually, I was smart enough to realize that that was a dead end, and I thought perhaps putting some down on paper could exercise some of that anger. And I mean, I'm thinking it worked to some extent. You know, it was therapeutic for him, I guess. Uh, Pivotal to his comic book's plotting was another tragedy. O'Barr heard about a couple killed over an engagement ring. I thought it was outlandish. A $30 ring, two lives wasted. He said in a book about the production called The Crow, the movie. Oops, what happened there? Jumped down. Oh, there we go. That became the beginning of the focal point and the idea that there could be love strong enough that it could transcend death, that it could refuse death, and the soul would not rest until it could set things right. And that's a key piece of the movie. That idea that his love for his fiancee is so strong that he can't rest. He just can't rest until wow, that advert is absolutely, it's just weird, that advert with the farting on it. Oh my god, hold on. Let's see if we can like zoom in on just what I want to see, which is this stuff there. Well, that kind of works. Okay, so that was a pivotal point, was these two stories, his actual fiance dying, which is an absolute tragedy, and then him reading about this story about some people being killed over a $30 engagement ring. It's absolutely insane. Okay, so there was interest in turning the comic book into a movie early on. The Crow comic book debuted on the 1st of February 1989. Shortly after the second issue came out, O'Barr, who at the time was doing auto body work, was approached by a young director who was interested in buying the rights to the Crow for a one-time lump sum. I mean, that seems like a good idea. Like, oh shit, I've just written this thing, I could sell it for this buttload of cash. All rights, all media, and perpetuity. O'Barr said the Crow, the movie, but the money was pretty good considering I was going to do it. But his friends convinced him to consult with a Hollywood agent who advised Barr against selling the rights for the comic for a lump sum. So they kind of looked at it and were like, you know what, you can get more. I think what they were thinking about was that this could make money further down the line, and if he sold it for that lump sum and it became like massive, he's stuck with that money that he spent on it. So I think that was a good thing that they talked him into that. Then, right when the third issue was coming out, O'Barr met with writer John Shirley and producer Jeff Most, who were eager to adapt the book into a movie. Their enthusiasm convinced me that the film could be done correctly, and that was one of the things that was important, was finding that way to turn that amazing graphic novel into a good film, and not just like cheapening it, which it could have happened. Even though it was for less than what he had previously been offered, he wasn't selling out his copyright, which meant that when it turned into something, he would be able to still make money from it. The best chance of the film turning into something I'd want to see, he just went with his instincts, which is cool. That's very cool. Writer John Shirley and producer Jeff Most made some changes to O'Barr's anti-hero. Shirley and Most got to work right away adapting The Crow into a script. They made a few changes, downplaying Eric's drug use. Yeah, I think I remember that. I think in the graphic novel, there's a lot of that's his way of coping with stuff, is drug use and all that kind of stuff. And I think they were just like, no, they wanted him to be more of a positive person, if that makes some kind of sense. And bringing the love story to the fore, which I think was also a very good move. They also made the Crow an actional animal, not just Eric's psyche as in the comics. That spoke to Eric. This spoke to Eric telepathically. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool as well. The Crow is like a huge part in the movie. While Shirley worked on the script, Most took the treatment and the comics and went about shopping the screenplay. Eventually, independent producer Ed Pressman signed on to help make the movie, and for the next 2 years, Shirley honed the script. He added an older brother for Sarah, a version of the character from the comics. I don't believe she actually, that brother actually appears in the movie. But Sarah, the young girl with a drug addict for a mother, does. And turned the Skull Cowboy, a manifestation of Eric's mental anguish that appears 3 times in the comics, into a guide. That was also dropped from the movie. There's a bit on that later on, I believe. And so I think that was probably a good idea that they did that, because I'm not sure how that would have played out. Okay. Eventually, O'Barr thought the creative team had gone too far with their changes, so he created a 10-page outline explaining his character's motivations to get them back on track. Not long after, horror writer David S. Shaw, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and Critters 3 and 4, came on board to do a rewrite. He told Pressman that Eric Draven should be a gothic rock and roll Terminator. That's a great way to describe it. Gothic rock and roll Terminator. To some extent, that really is what that movie is. Okay. Shaw cut back on the number of villains, gave the remaining ones a clear hierarchy, which is really cool. The way that the bad guys, Top Dollar, Tintin, T-Bird, all those guys are kind of set up is kind of fantastic. It's one of the things that makes the film, I think, is the villains and just their sort of way of being. It's cool. Okay. Hierarchy. And he added the Devil's Night as the motivating factor behind the initial attack on Eric and Shelley. Yeah, so the bad guys, they just basically go out and do mayhem on Devil's Night. They set fire to stuff, they murder people. It's like a whole big thing for them. And that's what sets it off for the beginning, which I love. Just to give the villains a more esoteric agenda. He said in The Crow, the movie, making that decision also grounded the movie in Detroit, a city regularly experienced fires mayhem the night before Halloween. So that whole Devil's Night thing was just kind of a plot device, but it's also cool. It's also a really cool way of kind of encapsulating it, and it's funny because you think a lot of the times those type of movies, you think, oh, Halloween, the ghost, the guy comes back on Halloween. They switched it up. It was the night before Halloween. It was Devil's Night. And I like that. I like that. They didn't just do, oh, it's Halloween. I think that was a really cool move to not just basically be like, it's Halloween, so he comes back. You know, it's like, it's different. Anyway. Okay. The producers knew who they wanted to direct and star. Pressman had Alex Proyas. Let me get that picture up. There we go. Great picture of Brandon Lee there. Pressman had Alex Proyas, an Australian director who at that point had only helmed music videos. He directed 2 Crowded House videos. Let me see if I can remember which ones they were. Are you gonna pop up? I think it's Don't Dream It's Over and another one. Let's see. Go down to his filmography. There we go. So Don't Dream It's Over by Crowded House, which I love, and Better Be Home Soon, also by Crowded House, who are a fantastic New Zealand band. New Zealand / Australian, because I think the main 2 guys are from New Zealand, and then the rest of the guys are from Australia. Anyway, so Alex Proyas had only directed the music videos before, but they figured, and some commercials, but no features, but they figured he would be great for directing The Crow, and they were right. He also directed another one of my favorite movies, Dark City. Dark City is incredible. I may, if this, like, I'm saying does well, like, if I feel that this goes well enough tonight, I probably will do more at some point in the future, and I'll probably do Dark City because it's just an amazing movie. Okay. Though Price was very much in demand in Hollywood, he was waiting for the right project. The Crow was it. He signed on in 1991. So, yep. The producers first looked at musicians to fill the role of Eric Draven, which I think wouldn't have been good. So they were thinking of getting musicians, and then at some point they were thinking more kind of action oriented stars. But Brandon Lee seemed to fit exactly what they needed. So they looked at Charlie Sexton, a rocker from Texas, but ultimately their first choice was Brandon Lee. At that point, Lee, son of famed actor / martial artist Bruce Lee, had appeared in a few films, but he hadn't had a breakout role yet, which is unfortunate because he was a good actor. He was actually a good actor, and it's a shame that he hadn't broken out at that point. He had appeared in a few films but hadn't had a breakout role yet. We had considered some more established actors, and we were concerned that certain of those actors didn't have the athletic ability. So I'm not sure who they're looking into, but it was people that were like, oh, this guy's a big star, but he might not be able to do all the athleticism. Whereas Brandon Lee had both of those going on, which is really cool. Pressman said in The Crow, the movie, other people had the athletic ability but not the acting talents. Brandon combined it all. When Brandon walked into this office, it was an immediate flash. We knew we had our Eric Draven that instant. And I cannot imagine anyone else playing Eric Draven. I literally cannot. Such a tragedy that Brandon Lee died making this movie, but he is our Eric Draven, no doubt about it. Uh, Brandon Lee asked for one character to be removed. Once Lee signed on to star in The Crow, he read the comic book. After the script was written, Alex Parias and I went back to the comic book and tried to find out the beats of the story that didn't make it into the script. Lee said at one point during production, Parias took Lee's feedback seriously and often incorporated his changes into the script. That included cutting out one villain, an Asian character out to steal Eric's powers, whom Lee thought was a stereotype. Again, that makes sense. I don't know if I could have. They kind of sort of replaced that with the Tony Todd character and the is it Bai Ling character. They kind of have that, but it's not this stereotypical supervillain, which I don't think would have been good. Uh, it was tough to get the makeup right. There's a persistent rumor that Eric Draven's makeup was inspired by Alice Cooper or Kiss, and it's a rumor that O'Barr denies. At a comic convention in 2009, O'Barr said that the Crow's look came from a marionette mask which he saw painted on a theatre in London. I thought it'd be interesting to have this painful face with a smile forcibly drawn on it. And that is one of the things about that movie is the face paint is such an iconic part of the movie. You look at it, you see the white pancake makeup, and then the dark and the eyes and the mouth, and I mean it's amazing. It really is. Regardless of what inspired the makeup, getting it right was very tough. It took between 35 minutes and an hour to apply the grease makeup, which could stay in place for hours. Special effects artist Lance Anderson created a rubber mask that had slits in it so the pattern of lines around the eyes and mouth could be consistent. Which, again, he's doing all this crazy stuff throughout that one night. It's basically that one night. There's no way that makeup just stays undamaged. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Price and Lee weren't fans of the freshly applied look. The first few times Brandon and I looked at it, we were both really unhappy with it. Price admitted in the DVD commentary it was hard to get it to the point where it didn't feel self-conscious. We were both happy with it when it was distressed, which makes sense. You know that he's been through so much, he's been doing so much, he's been fighting. It makes sense that the makeup would be distressed. He almost wanted to sleep in the makeup and then come to set the next day. That's when it would look really great. I mean, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. David Patrick Kelly. So he's the one that plays. Is it Tintin? I think he's the one that plays Tintin. Bought a vintage copy of Paradise Lost for the production. So there's a whole bit in the movie where he reads from Paradise Lost. He reads this specific section right before they do something really horrible to Shelley, the fiance. And it's kind of iconic. So David Patrick Kelly bought a vintage copy to use. And that's some kind of method acting there. Some of the actors cast as villains in The Crow went through training to portray their characters. Lance Mason, for example, worked with a stunt coordinator, Jeff Imada, to learn real-life knife fighting moves in order to play Tintin. Oh, he's the one that plays Tintin. Who does Dave Patrick Kelly play? Oh my god, I'm forgetting their names. There's Tintin. There's... Oh my god. T-Bird. He plays T-Bird. Oh my god. Okay. There we go. T-Bird. It's down there. Uh, Others donned costumes. Michael Massey, who played Fun Boy, wore outfits inspired by Iggy Pop. Fun fact, Iggy Pop is actually in The Crow 2 City of Angels, which is funny when you look at this. I think that's kind of groovy. Uh, and some outfits taken directly from the comic. David Patrick Kelly, who played T-Bird, used a more literary inspiration to get into character. John Milton's Paradise Lost. T-Bird quotes Milton in the flashback sequences. Kelly bought an antique of the book to use in the scenes. So that's cool. I think that's really cool. And again, that's a huge, iconic part of the movie. Okay. Uh, this one cracks me up. They used ravens, not crows, during the filming. Animal trainer Larry Madrid trained 5 ravens for the production because the Crow filmed at night when ravens sleep. He had to get the birds accustomed to that, as well as flying in the rain, which they don't normally do, and in a wind tunnel. One of the ravens also had to be trained to be comfortable sitting on Lee's shoulder. Again, oh my god, such an iconic. Let's see if I can find a picture of that. Uh, no, I don't want to restart Firefox. Are you kidding me? What? Okay, well, no. Um, so yeah, that scene with the crow, which is actually a raven, landing on his shoulder. I mean, it's just so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen in my life. Okay, the production employed plenty of tricks to get its shots. The Crow didn't have a huge budget, so the filmmakers sometimes relied on trickery to get the shots they needed. For the opening sequence, which shows a city on fire, the production used miniatures and projection technology. We went to elaborate lengths to project flames into a miniature set. Price said in the DVD commentary. We had screens set up so we could project into the miniature on multiple passes. It was really the very early days of digital imagery, and we didn't really have the money to use them, so we tried to do things in much more of an optical way. And that's one of the things nowadays. I mean, I'm not saying like all films now use it, but nowadays a lot of it is CGI, all the digital stuff. And back in the day, they had to do in camera optical, like as much actually of what's happening as they could, which is great. So this was one of the first kind of times where they used a bit of digital kind of stuff, but it was there was a lot of practical effects, which I love. I love practical effects. For one iconic shot in which Eric dumps a bunch of rings into the barrel of a shotgun, it's a great shot, and fires it. Prius cut to some oversized rings being dropped towards the camera through a puff of smoke. That's kind of cool. He said, the way it's cut, you really think you're seeing a bunch of rings that were dropped into a shotgun. The production didn't have the money or the space to shoot a car chase sequence, so they did it with miniatures instead. Now, this one really surprised me because the car chase scene is kind of great, and I never knew that it was miniatures. I never knew that it was just all miniatures. It's kind of insane. Um, and the final rooftop confrontation between Eric and head villain Top Dollar, played by Michael Wincott, who is fantastic in this, was shot not on the roof of a church, but on modular pieces sitting on the soundstage floor that were made to look like a Gothic cathedral. Again, I never would have figured that. I really never would have. It's super cool. Oh, it's a great with him with the hand, so good. They use special effects too. For a scene in which the Crow attacks Maya, Bai Ling is amazing in this. Her character is insane, and she does just such a great job playing this character. Anderson built a mechanical bird to do the attacking. It had separate controls for the wings, the claws. His shop also built mechanical hands that looked just like Lee's for a scene in which Eric is shot in the hand and his hand heals. Let's see, it's actually going to let us play that. It's a great scene.
I don't know if you've heard, but iExcel's perfect for busy kids like us. I'm getting ahead and reading.
Okay, there we go.
Come here, bird. 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 Birdie. Birdie, 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 birdie. Come here. Birdie, birdie, birdie. Here, fun boy. What the fuck? Oh, man, don't do that! You nearly gave me a fucking heart attack. Don't sweat it. It's time for you to take your bird and leave, Frico. Take your shot, fun boy. You got me, dead bang. You seriously fucked up. But you look in the mirror? I mean, you need professional help. Bingo! He shoots! He scored! Jesus.
So there we go. That's such a great scene. I love it. So yeah, hopefully that won't get cut. It probably will, but we'll see. So what we ended up doing, Anderson said in The Crow, the movie, was closing it to a point and then taking filler and filling the hole and so it would close totally clean and go away like stop motion. They also graded a full dummy of top dollar to be used in the climatic fight sequence where he's impaled on a horn of a gargoyle. So again, it's just a great movie. It really is. James O'Barr makes a cameo in The Crow. He's the guy who wrote the graphic novel that it's based on. I did not know this. He's the looter who steals a television in the aftermath of the explosion at Gideon's pawn shop. Another iconic scene, and James O'Barr makes a cameo. I did not know that until I had read these things. Okay, with just a few days, this is sad. With just a few days left to film, Lee was killed in a tragic on-set accident. Now this absolutely breaks my heart. The cast and crew worked long, grueling hours in the rain and at night on the set of The Crow, which was plagued by misfortunes, almost from the start. In February of 1993, a carpenter was seriously injured on set when the crane he was working in hit live power lines. That night, an equipment truck caught on fire, and later a sculptor who had worked on the set for just a few days drove through the plaster shop after he was let go. A construction worker accidentally drove a screwdriver through his hand. Let's look back at that last scene. And then in March, a storm destroyed some of the sets. So it seems like just there were things going wrong all over the place, which kind of sucks. On March 31st, 1993, the production was filming a flashback sequence that showed how Eric died. As he walked into the apartment he shared with Shelley to find her being raped and beaten by Top Dollar's henchmen, Funboy would pull out his .44 Magnum and shoot him. The script of The Crow called for a close-up of the loaded weapon. The crew, following standard procedures, used dummy bullets, which are nothing more than bullets without gunpowder. When the close-up was finished, the gun was unloaded and then reloaded with blanks. Blanks sound as loud as real bullets, but when they're fired, only harmless cardboard wadding with which they are packed is ejected from the gun. This time, though, the action was far from benign. Massey pulled the trigger and Lee slumped to the ground, a hole the size of a quarter in his lower right abdomen. The crew didn't realise that Lee was injured until Price called cut and the actor didn't get up. He was rushed to the hospital, but doctors couldn't save him. Lee died later in the afternoon. He was just 20 years old. It's so sad. I remember when I first got the DVD of this movie, there's some on-set interviews with Brandon Lee, including his last ever, and there's all these bits where he's talking about death, because the movie's got a lot about death and grief and loss, and he's talking about that, and it made me cry. I'm welling up just a little bit now, even thinking about it there. So yeah, it was just sad. It took some time to figure out what happened, but according to the Telegraph, both the dummy bullets and the blanks used in production had hastily been fabricated by taking out the gunpowder from real bullets. Because of the time pressure crew members were under, the lead tip of a dummy bullet became lodged in the barrel of the gun and pushed out by the blank charge. Scratched the bottom of a shopping bag before perforating Lee's navel, and managed to puncture the stem of an aorta where it branches to provide blood supply to the legs. So it was just this horrible, tragic accident I think they're going to talk about now, because Michael Massey, who pulled the trigger, had some serious issues because of this. After the incident, Paramount, which had agreed to distribute the movie, dropped out, leaving the film in limbo. Miramax eventually picked it up. Producers, with permission from Lee's family, wanted to finish the film, and after a 6-week bereavement period, the cast and crew returned to Wilmington to complete filming The Crow. No criminal charges were ever filed in Lee's death, but his mother, Linda Lee Cadwell, did file a lawsuit against the producers and production company, which was eventually settled. In 2005, Massey spoke out about the incident for the first time. It absolutely wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't even supposed to be handling the gun until we started shooting the scene and the director changed it. He said, afterward, I just took a year off and I went back to New York and didn't do anything. I didn't work. What happened to Brandon was a tragic accident. I don't think you ever go over something like that. And I don't think he ever did. I think that stayed with him for the rest of his life. He died a few years back, I believe. Yeah, I think that stayed with him for forever. It's a shame. After Lee's death, the script was reworked and one character was cut. 1 month after Lee's death, Pressman and Price began rewriting the script, ultimately presenting, according to Entertainment Weekly, an emotionally softened, reworked script. The filmmakers opted to use Lee's half-finished scenes in montages, and they cut out one character altogether, the Skull Cowboy, played by Michael Berryman. If you know who Michael Berryman is, was in The Hills Have Eyes. He's a very kind of prominent character actor. You always see he was a big, kind of imposing, bald guy with a kind of a interesting face. Anyway, he played the Skull Cowboy, a guide who laid out the rules of Eric's return to the land of the living. According to The Crow, the movie, those rules were ice the bad guys, receive a reunion with Shelley, but work for the living and you bleed. And I think all of that's kind of implied in the movie. I just don't think they needed that character. Excuse me. In the DVD commentary, Proyas said he cut the character for a number of reasons. I was never happy with the effect. I felt he lowered the standard of the film, made it a little cheesy. He said, but also because I felt that the character was kind of unnecessary. I feel that you get what's going on, you understand it, you don't really need someone telling you. As an audience, what's happening at various points, and that seemed to be the function that he was playing. We also only got to shoot one scene with him, and there were 2 other scenes planned that we didn't get to shoot. How do you make more of him without Brandon to relate to him? And why would you ever want to bother? It was an easy decision to drop him. I mean, I see why they did that. I don't think it would have worked. I think they were right to drop that character and all of that stuff. So yeah, I agree. The Skull Cowboy's exposition was replaced with Sarah's narration, and Eric only becomes mortal when the crow he's been following is killed. So yeah, I like Sarah's narration of the movie. It ties everything really well together. I like the way that it's told through the eyes of this kind of innocent young girl, and her love of these people that she knew who were brutally murdered. I think it just works. I think I wouldn't see any other way. Other scenes that ended up on the cutting room floor involved Skank, funny character, being robbed by children, and an extended fight sequence between Eric and Funboy in which Funboy actually wounds Eric. Price said on the DVD that they cut the fight for 2 reasons. One, because now that the Skull Cowboy was gone, the conceit that Eric doing something for the living would make him vulnerable wasn't clear, and also because we had so little time to shoot the fight scene that Brandon and I, neither of us, were particularly happy with the results. Price said he had choreographed a really beautiful sequence and I really hadn't been able to capture it in the time we had. Yeah, so what they're talking about him, the reason why Funboy would be able to wound him because he's doing something for the living. Funboy is in a relationship with Sarah's mother, who's a drug addict. And Eric goes and tries to. I mean, he wants to kill Funboy. That whole bit happens, but he also helps the mother to be a better mother for Sarah. So he's helping someone who's living, and because they cut all the stuff with the Skull Cowboy telling the rules, it wouldn't make sense, really. So they changed it. Thanks to the changes, in a way, the film becomes about something different. One source told Entertainment Weekly, it became about how to deal with grief. What happens when someone you love is taken from you? How do you incorporate that into your life? That is one of the things I really got from this movie when I was younger. It was, yes, a badass action movie with some just really amazing stuff in it, but it also deals with grief and with death and with stuff that we don't really want to talk about or deal with. And yeah, I mean, I just think that, I don't know, I just think that what it became is what it was supposed to be. I really do. Anyway, cutting edge visual effects were used to complete the film after Lee's death. In addition to having doubles stand in for Lee and filming those scenes as long shots and shadows, the production relied on the VFX company DreamQuest Images to fill in some of the blanks. Using footage of Lee from other sequences, the visual effects company finished 7 shots. In one sequence where Eric enters the abandoned loft, DreamQuest took a shot of Lee stumbling down an alley and digitally removed the background. by adding a matte painting of the doorway they wrote to make it look like he was actually walking into his apartment. In another shot where Eric sees himself in a broken mirror, Dreamquest once again digitally isolated Lee from an outside shot. Now, I've always remembered that there's this scene, he smashes his hand on a mirror and it's broken, and you see his face and it's all, you know, broken up and stuff. And I always remember thinking that that was some kind of digital effect or something. But to know that the reason why they had to do that was because he had died and they hadn't finished filming that shot is kind of cool. It's kind of sad, but it's a great shot and scene in the film. So yeah, I don't know. It's sad. Broken Miller. Once again, digitally isolating from the show. Using a shot of a double in front of a shattered glass mirror as a guide, they're able to create a grid that allowed them to composite Lee's image onto the mirror. You can see how they did it here. There's a link here, but we're not gonna look at that just now. Even more extraordinary, the company did this on handheld footage, a far cry from most visual effects shots at the time, which were carefully planned and staged and shot with a Steadicam. Just developed image tracking software helped them pull it off. So yeah, so this was something they had to do because Brandon Lee had died, and they just found these really cool ways to pull a lot of this stuff off, which I love. Executives were worried the audiences wouldn't get the movie. In the very first test screenings we had, 2 or 3 people out of 300 would ask, why is it that Eric Draven is the guy that can come back with these powers? Why can't he come back from the dead? Or why can he come back from the dead? Price recalled in the DVD commentary, I'm going, who the hell cares? I remember this was really a big thing for everyone at the time, but now see the movie, it's obviously ludicrous. It's suspension of disbelief and people go with it. Exactly. I don't need, you know, he found an ancient amulet when he was 10 years old. You know, that's just bullshit. His love for Shelley is what allows him to come back. And he's only allowed to come back to avenge their deaths, and then he gets reunited with Shelley and moves on. I mean, it is what it is. Oh, right. The Crow, so The Crow was a hit. The Crow was released on May 13th, 1994. And was the #1 movie in America in its first weekend. That's a big thing. Critics, including Roger Ebert and Rolling Stone's Peter Travers, praised the movie. Its total domestic gross was nearly 51 million. I can't remember what the budget was, but I know it was way less than that. I can go and look at that in a second. But yeah, that's incredible. O'Barr donated most of his profits from the film to charity. O'Barr bought his mom a car and a surround sound system for himself, then donated the rest. I was really good friends with Brandon, meaning Brandon Lee, so it just felt like blood money to me. He said at a comics convention in 2009, I didn't want to profit at his expense, and I kept that secret for as long as I could. It's not charity if you get credit for it. Yeah, I mean, if you're like, hey, I did this thing, it becomes, you know, because you're doing it to get the mention, you know, it's weird. The Crow spawned several sequels. Yes, it did. It wasn't upmost in my mind to create a franchise, but I was aware that it could do that, and you don't want to make that impossible, Price said in the DVD commentary. You can see all the elements there. If Eric Draven was going to come back again, there had to be some layers to it. There had to be some reason for him to come back. I would have been delighted to make The Crow 2, and if Brandon had been involved, we would have made a great movie. So The Crow 2, The City of Angels, it's not a terrible movie. It's nowhere near as good as the original, but it's not an absolutely terrible movie by any stretch of the imagination. Even with even without Lee, though the sequels came. The Crow, City of Angels, starring Mia Kirshner as Sarah and Vincent Perez as the Crow, Ashley Corvin, Ashley Corvin, or Ash Corvin, I guess, sorry, was released in 1996. In 1998, there was a short-lived TV series called The Crow Stairway to Heaven, which I have not seen. I might look into that at some point, but I've not seen it as of right now. Oops, it's gone back up. Okay. Starring Mark Dacascos. Can't remember if I've heard good things about that or not. Anyway, then in 2000, Kirsten Dunst and Eric Mabius starred in another movie, The Crow's Salvation. It's actually got a pretty decent soundtrack. There's a really cool Stabbing Westward remix on that soundtrack, but the movie is not great. That was followed in 2005 by The Crow Wicked Prayer, which starred Tara Reid, David Boreanaz, and Edward Furlong. It's also not very good. Number 19. A reboot of The Crow is coming in 2024. It's already out, and I've not seen it, but I've heard very bad things about it. And it's funny because I like, what's his name? Where is it? Down further? Maybe not. Skarsgård, whatever his name is, Bill Skarsgård is in it. It's it is what it is. Anyway, so this is one of my all-time favorite movies, and it was a huge influence on me when it first came out. I have loved this movie for a huge period of my life. And I just realized, so two things. I just realized that I have not watched it in a while, so I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to watch it at some point soon. Possibly tonight, actually. And the other thing is, so my handle on most things is The Shadow of Night. And where that came from was, well, oh, Electric Space Girl says she'll watch it with me. Awesome. I love this movie. It's like such a good movie. How long have you been lurking there for? You been there for a while? Or did you just pop on? So, yeah, so my name, The Shadow of Night, came from a Crow message board that I was part on. Oh wow, you've been watching almost from the beginning. Awesome. Cool. So sometime I wanna say like 98, 99. I mean, yeah, it must have been. I don't remember. But sometime, yes, we did. We watched it together a few years ago. I mean, I love it. It's like one of my all-time favorite movies. Anyway, I joined this bulletin board, and it was like a Crow related bulletin board back in the day, in the early times of the internet. Oh, okay. Have you been listening, Kevinicus, with your little Batman badge? Okay, that's all good. Vaguely is better than not at all, so I will take vaguely. So yeah, I joined this bulletin board. It was a Crow-based bulletin board, and it was like, you know, come up with your screen name. And I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to come up with the cool sort of crow sounding screen name, and I basically just was like the Shadow of Night, boom, done. And that's been like my screen name, handle, whatever, for a long time. And I even managed to work it into a story that I'm working on. Well, like a mythology for a story that I'm working on. There's a whole thing about the Shadow of Night, and yeah. So it basically came from my love of the Crow, uh, and so this is one of the reasons why. Wait, what's only vaguely? Oh wait, yes, you've only been listening. Okay, okay. Sorry, I got distracted there for just a second. So it's quite fitting that I decided to. The first time I'm not doing a game and I'm just chatting and just doing whatever. Uh, it's funny that I picked The Crow because that's where my name came from. The Shadow of Night, that's where it came from. It came from me trying to be all cool and dark and gothic. Uh, my screen name I've had since high school before I went on the interwebs. When I had to pick one for a chat room in college, it was a natural pick. I mean, yeah, Kivinicus. I mean, it just works. I mean, it just completely works. um, I had another one before the Shadow of Night one, which was Wolf Sauron. Uh, yep, yours was inspired. Electric Space Girls was inspired by David Bowie, which is cool. I think we all have pretty cool screen names. I really do. I like them all. None of us are called like Bob 3 or Bob 69 or anything like that. Um, so yeah, my name that I went with before was Wolf Sauron, so it was like Wolf dash Sauron, and that comes from the Silmarillion, which is it's not exactly a Tolkien book. I mean, it is, but it's based on all his mythology and all his notes they had on Middle Earth and the history of it and all that. Um, that his son Christopher Tolkien uh, put together, edited, and published as the Silmarillion. Oh my god! Every time I say it, it's just like Marilla, but I'm saying the Silmarillion. Okay. So there's a bit in that where Sauron takes on the form of a wolf, and it mentions them from then on, from that part, as Wolf Sauron. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So that was my original screen name, was Wolf Sauron. And then when I did the Crow thing years later, I picked Shadow of Night, and that's just me. I'm just Shadow of Night. Um, It's from the Captain in the Games Master cartoon. The main character's name was Kevin, and Pitt called him Kevinicus. Oh, that's cool. Obscure enough that there's only like 10 of us that I've used over the last 30 years, most of which is me and one other guy. I think it's time to call it night. Sweet dreams. Sweet dreams to you too. Electric Space Girl. I will see you tomorrow. So I've had a bit of a tiring day as well. I was going to do this. I'm not sure how it went. I enjoyed it because I love talking about this movie. This movie's fantastic. Um, so I'm gonna call it tonight. I was gonna play a game, but I'm not going to right now because I'm a little tired. I've had quite a busy day. So I am just going to call it. I will next be streaming on Friday. So that'll be cool. I'm going to find someone for us to raid out to. But first, I am going to put us on the ending screen. But I am going to read out. So just I'm gonna start this again because it's kind of cool. Back there. Okay. There we go. Okay. Thank you, and I will see you next time. But I am going to be reading out, so don't worry.